Neville Goddard, The Power and the Wisdom, Lecture Excerpts. Something comes out of a man. It is you, your own identity, not another. But what comes out? For all the identity of that person that you are, there's going to be a radical transformation of form. It's not the same form. It's not the face. It's not the things that you have here. No, an entirely different being, but still the same identity. But a form that is altogether different. It is a form that is power. It's infinite power, and you do not have to exercise it in the sense of doing this or doing that. This is what I mean by it. If clothed in the body you found yourself in hell, instantly hell would be transformed into heaven without your raising one finger to transform it. I know this from experience. The year was 1946 when I tasted of the wisdom of God and the power of God. I was on a ship coming through the Caribbean Sea from the port of Spain, Trinidad, to Mobile, Alabama. We were 7 days at sea. It was a freight bringing bauxite into the ovens in Alabama. They only carried 12 passengers. I had retired early. I had my wife and my little girl. Now the thing to do aboard a little ship like that was simply to enjoy the 3 meals, the sea breezes, and then sleep. So I turned in quite early, and in the wee hours of the morning, I felt like a fiery being pulled out of my skull in the form of a serpent, like a spiral motion. Here I am clothed entirely different. I am fire and air. My body is simply one living body, something unlike anything I had ever experienced. And as far as my eyes could see was a huge sea of human imperfections, the blind, the lame, the halt, the withered everything, all imperfect. I glided by in this body of light. I did not need the sun. I did not need the moon, the stars, anything to illuminate my world. I was luminous enough. As I glided, I simply illuminated the area that I wanted to see. As I came by these, I knew they were waiting to see me, waiting for me. As I glided by, everyone was transformed into the perfection that I felt myself to be. I was made perfect. And as I walked by, everyone had to be perfect in my presence. Eyes that were missing came out of nowhere and filled the empty sockets. The hands that were missing filled the empty sockets. Those who could not walk, they leaped for joy. Everything was made perfect, and this heavenly course accompanied me and called me by my earthly name, Neville. They said, "Neville is risen," when they first came out. And then from then, that wonderful choral group sang my praise and only repeated the words, "Neville is risen." I can't describe how this heavenly course could take only those 3 words and use them in such a dramatic, wonderful way without changing the words. The music was fantastic, and these voices formed the music. I didn't hear instruments, I only heard the voices, and just the words, "Neville is risen." Well, they could take it and blend it into such beauty that at the very end of the journey, when the very last one was made perfect, this heavenly course sang out, "It is finished." And then I felt myself actually come down into this garment, and this was like a straitjacket. This was something so cramping, so completely cramping, that no straitjacket in this world could be more confining than this body was when I came down into it. So I tasted of the wisdom of God and the power of God. I didn't have to do a thing to transform these people. My very presence transformed them. So I know the kingdom of heaven is a body, and clothed in this body, wherever you go, is heaven. As Milton said, "If I make my bed in hell, thou art there. Make it in heaven, thou art there. If I take my wings and fly, no matter where I fly," and he puts the words into the mouth of Satan, "it is hell, for I myself am hell." From Paradise Lost. If I am hell, no matter where I go, put me into heaven, it becomes hell. It's confusion. The body that is yours when you wake to it, well now, this is harmony beyond measure. And wherever you are, it's perfect. If you stood in the petrified forest, the whole vast forest would burst into foliage. If you went through the desert, it would blossom like the rose. Things long dead would simply become alive because you are alive. For you are the resurrection then. You are the God of the living, not the dead. So all things that seemingly are dead become alive in your presence. This is the power and the wisdom of which I speak, and I am not theorizing. I am not speculating. I have tasted of the power. By taste, I mean I have experienced the power and the wisdom of God. And when this little garment comes off for the last time, in a not distant future, I am clothed in that body forever. And the day will come, you will be clothed in a similar body. He gives it a body as he has chosen. You don't earn the kingdom. It is God's pleasure to give it to you, and he has already given it to you, but the gift has not yet been realized. It is still to be realized in experience. So I am sharing with you the experience. It comes suddenly, without warning, and then you taste of it. You tell it to your friends. Those who are not yet called to receive it will laugh at you and say it's a hallucination. All right, let them be. They will one day get it. Even though today they laugh at you, one day they will get it. They will all get it. When not a thing in this world can satisfy you but an experience of God, the hunger is on you. Yes, the fields may be bursting with wheat and all the food in the world at your disposal and all the money to buy it. But if the hunger is for the Word of God, not a thing can satisfy you but an experience of God. That's when he calls you. He sends a famine upon the land, not a hunger for bread or a thirst for water, but for the hearing of the Word of God. When that comes upon you, I don't care what the world will say. They can't turn you away from that experience, because not a thing can satisfy you. There is not one temptation in the world, offer you all the things in the world, it can't satisfy you. Offer you tonight the presidency, a dictatorship of the world, it could not satisfy you. You wouldn't want it. You want to experience God. You don't want it as hearsay. You want it from something that actually takes place within you, that you know from experience that God is. And in knowing who God is, you know who you are. Well, I'm telling you, you are God. You are actually the only God, because in the end, there can be nothing but God. There is no room for another in the universe. You brought this wonderful world into existence as a theater to manifest. So this power, and there are in the audience tonight those who have tasted of the power. There are those who have tasted, I hope, of the wisdom, where you know you do nothing to make it so. It just is so because you are perfect. When that perfection is yours, everything in the world is perfect. No matter what happens to you and to those you love, you still cannot for one moment entertain the thought that God is cruel, even though you see what appears to be a horrible thing taking place in your most intimate world. Yet you still maintain your conviction that God is love. For when you experience God as infinite love, not a thing in the world can turn you from that conviction. You know God is love, that's all there is to it, and you stand in the presence of the Ancient of Days, and you can't think of anything but love. And the Ancient of Days embraces you, and you fuse and you become one body. You are the Ancient of Days. And then you are sent, and you do the job that you are sent to do. Then as you are sent, you are the Word, and his name shall be called the Word of God. And you are told, My word that goes forth from my mouth shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I propose and prosper in the thing for which I sent it. It cannot come back void, so you will return to the Father having accomplished the work that he gave you to do. And at that return, you are God himself. You are the Father. I'm not here to flatter you. I'm not here to change what you are doing now. If you feel that you have not completed the world of Caesar, and you want something better in the world of Caesar, a bigger home, or more homes, and more money, more fame, more recognition, all right. If that's your hunger, may I tell you you're entitled to it, and you can get it. You can get it by simply assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and remaining faithful to that assumption. And if you remain faithful to that assumption, it will become a fact. He puts no limit on the power of belief, none whatsoever. It doesn't say if it's good for you or it is wrong if you desire it. There is no restriction upon the limit. Upon the limit of belief, none. So if you know what you want, and you dare assume that you have it, and live as though you have it, and live in the end, viewing the world from the end instead of thinking of the end, because God, in becoming man, does not think of man, he thinks from man. That's the secret. If I want to be this, that, or the other, I assume the feeling of my wish fulfilled, and then think from it. That's the secret. And you'll become it. But I'm telling you, I cannot persuade you to want an experience of God. It comes from your own Father in the depths of your own being. And when you really are ripe for that experience, he will send the hunger, and not a thing in this world can divert you but an experience of God. You've got to have it. And you may go through 1,001 blind alleys, but you're going to have it. All these others come with their little strange concepts of life, taking you to some holy place in the country and changing your physical diets and all these things to earn the kingdom. You don't earn it that way. You hear the story, and then you react. You either believe it or you don't believe it. Now let us go into the silence.